Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Uh, Thank you for coming back. I always appreciate your engagement and sharing the videos and commenting on the videos and subscribing to my channels. Thank you. And today is October 7, 2021. Thank you again for coming back. I will start today's presentation with UN United Nations security briefing uh, or discussion uh, on Ethiopia, on the situation in Ethiopia. And the United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres demanding answer from Ethiopian government about the removal of 7 senior UN United Nations officials, and also Ethiopian side, Ethiopian ambassador answer for that question. Plus, the United States ambassador Linda Thomas expressing concern and a very strong statement, and including warning the Ethiopian government about the situation in Ethiopia and about the removal of these 7 senior UN officials. Thank you again. Then I will have some reading to do, some news to read after the video. Thank you, and let's see.
Take the floor. If there is anything I have cherished during all this period, is to maintain a very effective and operational relationship with the government of Ethiopia and with its prime minister. To the effect that I had many criticisms
in Secretary General Antonio Guterres,
accusing me of being biased in favor of the Ethiopian government. So it is with total I would say, in a spirit of complete easiness, that I'd like to ask you one thing, Mr. Ambassador. If there is any written document provided by the Ethiopian government to any UN institution about any of the 8 members of the UN that were expelled, I would like to receive a copy of that document, because I have not had any knowledge of any of them, and it would be very useful for me to detect if documents are given to the UN and not given to my knowledge. Then I have to investigate what has happened in my organization. So I ask you, please, Mr. Ambassador, to provide me as a copy of any of the written documents written by the government of Ethiopia about any of the 8 that were expelled by Ethiopia in this regard. And I would recall that twice I told the Prime Minister that if there were concerns about lack of, I'd say, lack of impartiality of the UN staff, that I asked him, please send me those situations for me to be able to investigate. Twice I asked it to the Prime Minister. Until now, I had no response to these requests. And so, for us, the question is very simple. We believe that Ethiopia has not the right to expel these 8 members of the UN. We believe Ethiopia is violating international law in doing so. And we are ready to cooperate with the government of Ethiopia in relation to any situation in which the government of Ethiopia feels that any member of the UN is not behaving in total impartiality, in total independence, as humanitarian law prescribes and humanitarian principles establish. I want to tell you, Mr. Ambassador, we want to cooperate with the government of Ethiopia because we have only one agenda in Ethiopia. And that agenda is the people of Ethiopia. Tigrayans, Amarans, Afaris, Somalis, the people of Ethiopia. The people of Ethiopia is suffering. We have no other interest but to help stop that suffering. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his further clarification. The representative of Ethiopia has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give him the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Secretary General, I hear you loud and clear. I fully understand and realize the support you have given to our
So
people
this
and
is
my government
Ethiopian
as well.
ambassador
We know
at
where
the United
your
Nations,
heart is.
Ambassador
You have approached
Asmara.
our issue with candidness, with candor, and we highly respect that. As to the asks, I will definitely communicate to the appropriate authorities, and we will, of course, expeditiously, and as I've made it clear in my statement, this is an issue that has to be dealt between the Ethiopia and the United Nations. Whatever document that will be available will be submitted to your office, Your Excellency. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ethiopia for his statement.
Okay, this is the United States ambassador at the United Nations.
Thank you all.
Linda
I just have
Thomas.
a brief statement and I'll take a couple of questions. And let me begin by offering my strongest, in fact, the strongest solidarity possible from the United States to the United Nations and its staff worldwide. We called for today's urgent meeting because of the Ethiopian government's reckless expulsion of 7 key UN officials, including the head of UNICEF, the head of the UN OCHA, and a senior official from the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. These expulsions are an affront. They are an affront to the Council, they are an affront to the UN, and they are an affront to United Nations member states and our shared humanitarian principles. As I said in the meeting, there's simply no justification for these actions. The UN is impartial and neutral. These groups are conducting important human rights investigations and they are delivering life-saving aid. UN personnel must be allowed to return immediately to conduct their urgent work, including trying to stop a potentially devastating and unnecessary famine. These are self-inflicted wounds, and they reflect how more broadly this is a conflict where Ethiopians are killing Ethiopians, where Ethiopians are raping Ethiopians. It is Ethiopia's leaders who are letting down the Ethiopian people. 3 years ago, we were talking about Ethiopia as one of the fastest growing countries in Africa, a country full of promise and on the cusp of a major democratic and economic transformation. We were excited because Ethiopia looked like it might become the bedrock of Africa's optimistic future. 1 year ago, or a little less, we were told that the current situation would be a 2-week law enforcement action. Now we're talking about terrible violence. We're talking about mass famine, rape being used as a weapon of war. And I want to make something clear. It is not too late to stop this descent. It is not too late to prevent the famine, to get Ethiopia back on track, to save lives. There is still hope. We need a ceasefire that brings all parties to the table to find a peaceful way forward so that Ethiopians can return to the future we know it can have and its children deserve. The government needs to allow for the resumption of services to northern Ethiopia. There will be no lasting peace in Ethiopia, and the country's broader project of democratic and economic renewal will not be realized until there is a wider dialogue, one that includes all Ethiopians, on the future of that state. It is time for Ethiopian leaders to do the right things for the people of Ethiopia. Thank you. I will take a couple of questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador. Michelle Nichols from Reuters.
Hi, Michelle.
Given what we just heard in the Council from some of your colleagues, it doesn't look like any Council action is imminent. So what's the US planning to do? Are you going to impose sanctions soon on Ethiopia? And if I could, just on Afghanistan, we heard earlier from the Afghanistan director of WFP warning about the collapse of the Afghan economy if there's no sort of injection of cash. What is the US doing to try and kickstart the Afghan economy? Thanks.
Well, first on the question of Ethiopia, I think the fact of the council meeting today and speaking directly to the Ethiopians was an action. And believe me, it was not an action that was easy to take, but we were able to bring the council together in unity to speak about the situation in Ethiopia and have the Secretary General speak about the situation in Ethiopia. And we called upon the government to reverse this decision, and we called on the government to move forward on a ceasefire and look for a way forward. In terms of the United States, we do have tools at our disposal. You may have noted in my statement, I suggested it could be that we do a resolution, but also we, as you know, the president signed an executive order a couple of weeks ago that gives us the possibility of putting sanctions against individuals for gross violations of human rights and blocking of humanitarian assistance, and that is available for our use when we need it. On the situation in Ethiopia, it is not the U.S. government's responsibility, but we have to work together as the international community to find a way to support Afghanistan moving forward.
But
I also will add that it is also the responsibility of the Taliban to provide an enabling environment that allows for the world to provide them with that assistance. We continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, and we have worked to find ways around the sanctions regime to ensure that humanitarian assistance continues to flow into the country. And we will look forward to working with others in the international community to see what we can do to support the people of Afghanistan moving forward.
James Bays, Al Jazeera. Can I ask you about the new allegations that were made there by the Ethiopian ambassador to justify the expulsions? He said that UN officials had inflated and falsified data, even made up deaths. What is your response to those allegations?
You heard what the Secretary General said in response to those allegations. It's our first time hearing them. The Secretary General asked for evidence. He asked for evidence that the Ethiopian government had brought any of these allegations to the attention of the United Nations, and none of us have seen that. And as a UN Security Council member and a UN member state, we too want to see those allegations and to see where they're coming from. And the fact that you noted they are new allegations, they weren't even lodged prior to the 7 individuals being kicked out, raises some concerns in my mind about those. Thank you.
Okay, that's U.S. Ambassador at the United Nations, Linda Thomas, warning the Ethiopian government, expressing her concern and warning the Ethiopian government to end this conflict through dialogue, reconciliation, and by declaring a ceasefire. But is anyone listening from Ethiopian government side? So far, no one. They are in a very shiny and a very falsehood mood. They are in honeymoon, forming, a new government. It's nothing new, but they are forming the government. They don't, they don't see all the problems the world see, the inflation, the high unemployment, the war. They don't see all this. All they see is a false hope, a false prosperity for, it's a just dream. It's the dream, just expressing the dream and spending money for inauguration and celebrating the inauguration, celebrating a special election, nothing special. Everything was done in a, unfree, undemocratic way. The world know. And they got just few African countries to celebrate with them. So the problem will continue, and Abiy Ahmed and his cabinet, they are not listening. They are ready to continue the bloodshed. The Ethiopians will suffer a lot because the leaders are not listening. They want to fight until the end. They want to continue the bloodshed. So the United States repeating their calls for dialogue, reconciliation, and for ceasefire, but nobody is listening. So you hear the warning, you hear the concern. So we'll see what they're gonna do. Biden already signed the executive order, but they are holding it for now, giving more time for Ethiopian government to act. I assume, but we'll see. So, and United Nations Secretary General demanded answer for removal of these 7 or 8 UN senior officials. Maybe Ethiopia is taking a revenge for ongoing investigation the United Nations is conducting. So they want to disturb, because the report is coming. The report is coming. It's already piled. I think it's coming in November 1st. So they may be, Abiy may be unhappy about what is happening in that report. They want to disturb, so they just kick out these investigators and aid workers. There is no way to escape anyway. So we'll see. The challenge at the United Nations Security Council is China and Russia. That's the only one challenge. It's very difficult to get joint statement, joint resolution on Ethiopia, because China and Russia and in some part some other countries. Okay, let's continue reading some other news and conclude today's presentation. So the first one is Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed forms new government. Let's call it in the quotation new government. Adds 20 institutions, including NISS, INSCA, investment and financial security accountable to his office. The House of People's Representatives held the 6th round, first special session, which has seen the formation of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's new government. MPs in today's session also discussed and approved a draft proclamation deciding the powers and the function of the executive branch of the federal government. Accordingly, the Prime Minister proposed 22 ministerial positions as his new cabinet, which has been approved by the Parliament with 2 votes against and 12 abstention. The cabinet proposal saw the changing functions and jurisdictions of a number of ministries and government institutions, and the including for the first time of 3 opposition figures taking up ministerial positions. The other major development in the formation of the new government today is the inclusion of 20 institutions, including key intelligence, security, and financial institutions, to become directly accountable to the Prime Minister's office. This is a sign of dictatorship. The proposed ministerial portfolios: Ministry of Agriculture, MOA, Ministry of Industry, MOI, Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration, MOTRI, Ministry of Mines, MOM, Ministry of Tourism, MOT, Ministry of Labor and Skills, MOLS, Ministry of Finance, MOF, Ministry of Revenue, MOR, Ministry of Planning and Development, MOPD, Ministry of Innovation and Technology, MOIT, Ministry of Transport and Logistics, MOTL, Ministry of Urbanization and Infrastructure, MOUI, Ministry of Water and Energy, MOWE, Ministry of Irrigation and Lowland Areas, MOILA, Ministry of Education, MOE, Ministry of Health, MOH, Ministry of Women and Social Affairs, MOWSA, Ministry of Culture and Sports, MOCS, Ministry of Defense, MOD, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, Ministry of Justice, MOJ, and Ministry of Peace, MOP. Accordingly, the Mekke Mekonnen retained his position as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. So he keeps his position. As Ahmed Shide, Minister of Finance, also this keeps his position. Dr. Liata Dessa, Minister of Health, the same. Takala Uma, Minister of Mines, the same. Umar Hussein, Minister of Agriculture, I think this is also the same guy. Lak Ayalew, Minister of Revenue. Melaku Alebel, Minister of Industry. And Dagmawit Megos, Minister of Transport and Logistics. These are all mostly the same guys. Former federally appointed Tigray Interim Administration Head Abraham Belai, PhD, was moved to Ministry of Defense from Ministry of Innovation and Technology, as are Mufariat Kamil from Minister of Peace to the Minister of Labor and Social Service, I think. Aisha Muhammad leave from the now defunct Ministry of Construction and Urban Development, is appointed as the new Minister of Irrigation and Lowland Areas. And Gideon Timotheus became the Minister of the newly established Minister of Justice, leaving his position as federal Attorney General. Ergado Tesfaye, PhD, the former Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, was appointed as Minister of the newly established Minister of WSA, which is Minister of Women and Social Affairs. New appointees in the cabinet include Habtamu Itefa Galata, PhD, who became the Minister of Water and Energy, replacing the all too familiar Minister Sleshi Bakala. So Sleshi Bakala, I don't know where he go, but he lost his position. Ambassador Nasise Chali, who was Ethiopia's ambassador to Canada, became the Minister of Tourism, and Fusum Asfaw, PhD, the former Director of Plan and Investment Commission, takes up the Minister of Planning and Development. Binalif Andwalem, head of Prosperity Party, has become the Minister of Peace, and Chaltu Sani became Minister of Urbanization and Infrastructure, whereas Gabre Meskel Chala assumed newly restructured Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration. From the opposition parties, Brahanu Nagga, Dr. Brahanu Nagga, leader of the Ethiopian Citizens for Social Justice, is appointed as the Minister of Education. And Kajela Merdasa, former senior member of the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, as Minister of Culture and Sports, whereas Ballet Molla, chairman of the National Movement of Amara, Aben, as Minister of Innovation and Technology. So, a couple of new guys. A faction of OLF member led by Kajela has parted ways with the OLF led by its current chairman David Ibsa in the summer of 2020. So these are the de facto OLF leader became Minister of Culture and Sport. During the nomination, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said that nominations were decided after taking into consideration the merit and the dedication of individuals, as well as diversity, including gender and religion. The Prime Minister said that he expects his new cabinet to fight against poverty, begging, and corruption, while asserting that a cabinet member's loyalty shouldn't be to ethnicity, but only to federal institutions. Okay. 20 institutions under Prime Minister office. 20 institutions. And concerned citizens media has been warning the direction of the country Abiy is taking. He is slowly following Isaias Afewerki style. So he got the control of 20 ministers directly under his office. Today's major development is the restructuring of the government institution and their accountable office. Shortly after the appointment of the new cabinet members, state media posted list of institutions accountable to the Prime Minister: the National Bank of Ethiopia, the Ministry of Labor and Skill, Ministry of Planning and Development, and the Ministry of Justice. All this under his control. Accordingly, 20 institutions, including intelligence, security institutions, which were under the Ministry of Peace, and financial institutions are now directly accountable to the Prime Minister's office. They include Office of the Prime Minister, Government Communication Service, the National Bank of Ethiopia, Ethiopian Capital Market Authority, Ethiopian Investment Commission, National Palace Administration, Federal Police Commission, Information Network Security Agency, National Intelligence and Security Service, Financial Security Service, Artificial Intelligence Institute, Ethiopian Communication Authority, African Leadership Excellence Academy, the Republican Guard, Ethiopian National Security Council, Civil Service Commission, Federal Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Disaster Risk Management Commission, Reconciliation Commission, to be revised, and Administrative Affairs, Boundaries and Identity Commission, also to be revised. List of institutions accountable to the National Bank of Ethiopia include Civil Servant Social Security Agency and Private Employees Social Security Agency. Similarly, new ministry office and institutions accountable to them were announced. They are A. Institutions accountable to the Ministry of Labor and Skills are Technical and Vocational Training Institute, College of Agricultural, Technical and Education and Training, Tourism Training Institution. B. Institutions accountable to the Planning and Development Ministries are Ethiopian Statistics Service and Institute for Policy Studies, Environmental Protection Agency. C. Institutions accountable to the Ministry of Justice are Civil Society Organization Authority, Federal Prisons Commission, Federal Justice and Law Institution, Document Registration and Certification Service, and Federal Tax Appeal Tribunal. So those 20 institutions, and each controlling different sector, will be under the direct order of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So he is getting more authority and acting like more authoritarian. He will be responsible for all these sectors. It's not the parliament, it's not the House of Federation. He is the kingmaker, and we'll see. Okay, the next one is this has been circulating in a previous news about Ethiopian Airlines carrying weapons to war front, and OLF and other organizations claimed about this. You know, the civilian airlines cargo, transporting weapons and ammunition to the war front. So this is CNN investigator claiming again, and with evidence. Let's read what it says. Ethiopian Airlines denies transporting weapons in Tigray conflict. The CNN investigation cited cargo documents and manifests and eyewitness accounts and photographic evidence that confirmed weapons were transported on Ethiopian Airlines between Addis Ababa and the cities in Eritrea. Ethiopian Airlines had denied the findings of investigation by CNN, alleging it used its planes to transport weapons to and from Eritrea during the Tigray conflict. The CNN investigation cited cargo documents and manifest and eyewitness account and photographic evidence that confirmed weapons were transported on Ethiopian Airlines planes between the international airport in Addis Ababa and Eritrean airport in Asmara and Messawa in November 2020. On way bills examined by CNN, the news outlet found that on at least 6 occasions from November 9 to November 28, Ethiopian Airlines billed Ethiopian Ministry of Defense tens of thousands of dollars for military items, including guns and ammunition to be shipped to Eritrea. Terms and abbreviations including military refill, AM, for ammunition and rifles, a misspelling of refills, appeared on the way bills, according to CNN investigation, which also cited interviews with airline employees who confirmed the terms. If true, the claims are a violation of international aviation law, which prohibits using civilian aircraft to transport military weapons. It could also jeopardize Ethiopian Airlines membership in the lucrative Star Alliance, a group of 26 global airlines. In response, Ethiopian Airlines told CNN it strictly complies with all national, regional, and international aviation-related regulations, and that, to the best of its knowledge and its records, it has not transported any war armament in any of its routes by any of its aircrafts. The Ethiopian and the Eritrean government didn't respond to CNN's request for comment on the story. So this is reported by Al Jazeera news agency. So these claims keep coming back. OLF also released probably 3 months, 4 months ago, and claiming Ethiopian Airlines transporting weapons and other armaments into war front. Now, CNN investigation found evidence, bills paid by Ethiopian Defense Ministry to Ethiopian Airlines. So, if this is true, it could endanger Ethiopian Airlines membership to very lucrative Star Airlines. So we will follow it. Ethiopia denied. Ethiopian Airlines denied, but the Ethiopian government didn't respond. The Eritrean government didn't respond to CNN questions. So this is a very serious business. It could endanger also these airlines in transporting these weapons, ammunitions. It could endanger civilian lives who are using Ethiopian Airlines. So it is very serious. But Abiy and his prosperity officials, I don't care. I don't know if they care about this thing. They don't care. They care about only the continuation of the war and the winning the war. Yeah, winning the war. That's their dream. Okay, another violation also reported by Addis Standard. This is not new. Targeting Tigrayans living in Addis Ababa, making their life miserable, arresting them, shutting their business. So This is also a repeated story happening under Abiy Ahmed leadership, reported and warned by international organizations not to do these things, but I don't think this group cares about anything. Let's read. Continued crackdown on Tigrayans in Addis Ababa leave many out of business, afraid to talk, hopeless. Tigrayans business owners in the capital Addis Ababa told Addis Standard that their places of business were closed and now face serious challenges after reopening. Hannah, name changed based on a request by witness, told Addis Standard, I am an owner of a small restaurant and it is the main source of my income. She continued. It was closed for months. When I asked for explanations, none were offered. I was told that I was violating COVID-19 prevention guidelines when I went to Kabale and the Warada administration office. They ignored me mostly, and when they talked to me, they asked me to wait patiently. She said that her shop was only open for 15 days now. She continued to explain the financial strains she faced when her business was shut down. When my restaurant was closed, I had trouble paying its rent and the salaries of my 5 employees, and people would accuse me of supporting TPLF. She continued tearfully. I was born in Addis Ababa. I grew up here. I visited Tigray 2 times when I was a child, adding, let alone supporting them or TPLF, I do not have enough to get by. She explained the efforts of the closure on her clients. My clients are now afraid to come to my restaurant, and because of that fact, I and my 5 employees are almost out of work. Many witnesses at this standard spoke to were fearful that the publishing of their testimonies would endanger them as they have been threatened by authorities not to speak up. But not Caleb. Name excuse me, the battery is getting low. Okay. But not Caleb. Name changed based on witness requests, who told Addis Standard that his bar was closed 3 months ago. He disclosed nervously and in fear of being overheard by the surrounding people that he and his brother were imprisoned for a week after the shutting down of his place of business. He said, they released us on the guarantee of ID cards, but still my bar remains closed. He continued explaining the circumstances that led to the opening of this small business that remained closed. I opened the bar with loans and I pay those loans and the rent of the place every month. Mind you that I don't have any income, but I am still required to pay the rent and loans off. When asked about the complaint and promises made by authorities, he said, by now 17 different businesses are shut down in my area. Together with other owners, we are trying to find a solution. we tried to contact government officials who are directly connected to our case, but they don't want to give us an answer, while others told us to be patient, but I think they forget about us. Addis Standard contacted the Federal Police Commission, who directed the question to both Addis Ababa Trade and Industry Bureau and the Police Commission, who the spokesperson of the Federal Police Commission said were responsible for the decision to close businesses and carry out orders. Repeated attempts to reach both Addis Ababa Trade and Industry Bureau and the Police Commission were to no avail. According to a report released in September 2021 by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, the number of complaints of closures of business owned by ethnic Tigrayans residents in Addis Ababa over the past 2 months, the Commission received increased. The report disclosed that a monitoring team that focused their monitoring on 2 sub-cities of the capital learned that although these businesses were suspended on the order of the recently established Illegal and Contraband Trade Prevention and Control Task Force, many businesses remain closed due to long waiting periods for authorities to evaluate and reach a guilty or not guilty verdict. The Commission called on the Addis Ababa City Administration, the Federal Police, and other relevant government authorities to ensure swifter investigation and decision process. Ethiopian authorities since late June 2021 have arbitrarily detained, forcibly disappeared, and committed other abuses against ethnic Tigrayans in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. The authorities should immediately account for Tigrayans forcibly disappeared, release those being held without credible evidence of a crime, and end all discrimination treatment. Between July and August, Human Rights Watch interviewed by phone 8 current and former Tigrayan detainees, 4 Tigrayan business owners, and 25 relatives of detainees, witness to abuses, and lawyers. Human Rights Watch also reviewed court and police documents and relevant photos. Human Rights Watch disclosed that on August 11, 2021, it sent an email to Attorney General Gideon Timotheus summarizing its findings and requesting further information, but has not received a response. So, credit for this one at this standard. So that's a challenge, and it has been widely known, widely investigated by Human Rights Watch, Ethiopian Human Rights Watch, and International Human Rights Watch, and different news outlets. But the situation is not changing. It's not changing, and ethnic-based attack. This is like discrimination. If it is here in the United States, you can easily win this case, but in Ethiopia, no, they can do whatever they want to do. They can arrest you, they can take your property, they can shut down your property, they can kill you, drag you on the street, they can take you from jail, they can torture you, everything happening under Abiy Ahmed order. It could be worse in the next 5 years if they stay 5 years. Nothing is expected to change. Nothing economically, nothing in justice, nothing in lawlessness and accountability, lack of accountability. I have been reporting on this one. Persons investigated by court, released, rearrested by security forces. There is no justice like this. So Abiy now, he got more control again. He will do more harm to Ethiopians. He got, regular ministries plus 20 institutions under him. He will be the worst dictator. I compared him with Idi Amin, worse than Isaias Afwerki. And we are watching it, and he don't want to end the war. He don't want to end the global isolation. He don't want to end, inflation. He don't want to change unemployment. He just want to keep planting trees and enjoying Arat Kilo. Nothing will be changed. So that's all I have for today. And it's very bad, to see Ethiopia going in this road. And you see in the parliament, the social media activist, very controversial guy. I think his name is Angasa Ibrahim, Dr. Angasa, doctor in quotation, Angasa Ibrahim, joining the new parliament. You see what kind of parliament you see. So many controversial people joining him. The people insulting, Oromos, demonizing Oromos and others, joining the new parliament. And what do you expect from this parliament? What do you expect from the so-called new government? Nothing. So we're going to continue to watch, and we'll report to you. And so thank you again for joining me today. And I appreciate you. Share it, subscribe to it, so we can update ourselves with news about our home country, Ethiopia, and other global issues. Thank you. Be safe, and so long, everyone.